Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here. So I got a bit of a different kind of a book review for you today. I recently read the book The Little Prince, which is a classic book because I hadn't read it. I'd heard the story multiple times, but I hadn't actually sat down and read it. In fact, I think I recall, maybe it did cover the whole story, but I recall as a kid watching perhaps The Little Prince on Nickelodeon. Maybe that was it. And so I was familiar with a lot of the story, but I never sat down and actually read the whole thing. It's a pretty short read, but it was really interesting. I think there was a lot in there that I didn't realize the first time, just a lot about human behavior and psychology. It's probably worth a reread to really examine what's going on there. But it's really interesting. I thought, just the idea, the concept of, what I mostly got from it was just this idea that there's a lot of pointless shit that we're doing in life, right? There was a lot of planets that the Little Prince visited where it was like, the guy is busy, so busy, counting money, right? Or trying to rule over people and dominate, or trying to, what was it, just like doing these pointless things, right? That just didn't make sense, seeking approval, seeking vanity, seeking other people's approval or adoration, seeking that validation, right? These are a lot of things that I've talked about in these videos. And like all those things were really pointless, but ultimately what ended up being the most important thing was this concept in the book of taming, which the Little Prince tames the fox, and the fox teaches him about this, and he talks about how his rose, his rose back on his planet, which sort of kind of represents this kind of love interest, this kind of thorny rose that's particular but that is what's meaningful, or the man, the pilot that the prince meets, where he gets him the bucket of water right in the desert. That's something that like it becomes meaningful. And so and those are kind of two meaningless events that become the most meaningful, whereas all of these people that think they're doing such important things, riding the train, not knowing where they're going or why they're doing these things, that those things are really not important, that those things don't really carry real meaning in life. Yet the simple thing like taking care of the rose and that relationship with that single rose that the prince had, or the simple things that he did, like cleaning his volcanoes out, and the man getting the water for him, that those were the things that were really important. Those were the things that were actually important, even though they seem so simple and trivial, because it's almost like the idea that we bring the meaning to the actions and to life, as opposed to the things that we think are important. So it's a good examination, I think, looking at the world from a child's viewpoint, reconnecting with our inner child before we got all serious, before we thought all this shit was important, and realizing that going back and saying, of all the stuff that exists in my life, how much of it is really important? How much of it is actually going to be meaningful? And what is the meaning that I'm ascribing to this, right? To some degree, I choose that meaning based on what I invest, where I invest my time, where I invest my emotion, what I choose to make the meaning out of it. Other people can't tell me. Other people, their importance and their priorities don't necessarily reflect mine. And a lot of times, I think in this world, we can get into a state where all of these other external influences, all these other people and these things are telling us what we should believe, what we should think, what we should find valuable and important in life. And that's not necessarily true, right? It's what's important and what's valuable to us. And it's really hard sometimes to figure that out, to go back and connect with our inner child and say, wait a minute, before I was corrupted, when I was pure, when I was just living my life in spontaneity and just living in the present moment and living for who I am and the desires that I have at that time, what was important to me and what was life about, right? And it's hard. So, for some of us, that little child is locked away so far away, right? I think Maslow would talk about the idea of finding your identity, right? Or, becoming self-actualized. And I think to some degree to become self-actualized is to reconnect and rekindle that flame with the inner child of yourself, right? The old yourself, where you had that identity before you tried to conform to other people, before you tried to conform to this world, before you tried to make something and do something important as opposed to just living and just being, right? Which is ultimately all that we have in the end. So it's a really good book, I think, that makes you think about these things. There's a lot of books that tell a good story, and that's why I think that this book has been around so long, translated in so many languages, and celebrated so much. Is just because there's a lot there that doesn't even, that you might not even notice when you read the book, but when you think about it and you think about these concepts, you know, it speaks a lot. There's a lot of wisdom there. So again, it's called The Little Prince. I'm sure that you've heard of it, and like I said, I finally read it. All right, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you click that subscribe button below and click the bell so you don't miss any videos. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.